Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan John.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and coming up on the show today, speaking after indirect US-Iran talks in Geneva, Iran said it has reached an understanding with the United States on the main guiding principles to resolve their dispute over Tehran's nuclear program. The US said that progress was made, while Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi added that work still needs to be done. We're going to get you all the details on the show today. Stay tuned.
Also, more reports coming in. US campaign against alleged drug ports continues. In the latest, the US military carried out deadly strikes on 3 such vessels in the Eastern Pacific and in the Caribbean. US Southern Command confirmed that a total of 11 people were killed in the operation. We bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines first. This is World DNA.
India and France upgrade their ties to a special strategic partnership, boosting cooperation in defense, technology, minerals and energy. This as Prime Minister Modi meets Macron in Mumbai to discuss bilateral ties and global stability.
It was very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it.
Iran says it has agreed with the US in talks in Geneva on guiding principles for a deal to avoid conflict. But Vice President J.D. Vance says Tehran has not yet acknowledged all of Washington's red lines.
Ukrainian and Russian negotiators conclude the first of 2 days of US-mediated peace talks in Geneva, with neither side hinting at any breakthrough. Talks are set to continue today.
The Vatican will not join US President Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Cardinal Pietro Parolin says the United Nations is the proper body to handle global crises, as the board raises concerns that it could rival the UN.
Man arrested after running towards the US Capitol carrying a shotgun and wearing tactical vests. Suspect also carried multiple rounds of ammunition, Kevlar helmet and gas mask found in his vehicle.
Peru's Congress impeaches interim President Jose Jerry, the country's 7th leader in 10 years, over alleged irregular hiring and suspected graft involving a Chinese businessman.
US civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, a close ally of Martin Luther King Jr. and 2-time presidential candidate, dies at the age of 84. Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Joe Biden and Bill Clinton paid tribute.
US President Donald Trump announces that Japan will invest $36 billion in US oil, gas and critical mineral projects. This will be the first tranche of its $550 billion trade deal commitment, including a large Ohio gas plant, Georgia mineral site and Texas LNG project.
With the crescent moon marking the start of Ramzan sighted, Saudi Arabia announces the beginning of the holy month from today, while Iran's Supreme Leader's office says it will start on Thursday.
Starting with the Iran-US talks, Iran says that it has reached an understanding with the US on the main guiding principles for a deal to avoid conflict.
The Omani-mediated talks were aimed at averting the possibility of US military intervention to curb Iran's nuclear program, weeks after thousands were killed in mass demonstrations.
Speaking after indirect talks in Geneva, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi cleared that progress does not mean an agreement will be reached soon.
This does not mean that we can reach an agreement quickly, but at least the path has started. We hope that this will be done as soon as possible, and we are prepared to spend enough time on it. However, when it comes to drafting the text, the work becomes a bit more difficult and detailed.
In Washington, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said that talks went well in some ways. In an interview with Fox News, he said he spoke to U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner earlier in the day about negotiations with Iran.
Vance said the U.S. made it clear where its red lines are, including blocking Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. The U.S. Vice President warned that while they would prefer a diplomatic solution, all options were on the table.
Announcements today. I think the president has a lot of options. We do have a very powerful military. The president's shown a willingness to use it. He also has a remarkable diplomatic team. He's shown a willingness to use that too. And so
Washington has ordered 2 aircraft carriers to the region as it piles on pressure. The first, the USS Abraham Lincoln, with nearly 80 aircraft, was positioned about 700 kilometers from the Iranian coast as of Sunday. Its location puts at least a dozen US F-35s and F-18 fighter jets within striking distance.
A second carrier was dispatched over the weekend. Iran has also sought to display its military might with its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, beginning a series of war games in the Strait of Hormuz to prepare for potential security and military threats. Iranian state media on Tuesday reported a partial and temporary closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
Russia-Ukraine war is nearing its 4th year. The war on the ground is only becoming fiercer. Russia has carried out a massive aerial attack on Ukraine.
And this comes as delegates of both countries were meeting in Geneva. US President Donald Trump has told Kiev to quickly agree to a deal, and Germany now says that it has no weapons to give to Ukraine. There is more in this next report. Take a look.
Drones swarm the skies, missiles tear through darkness, barrages pound hours before talk. Escalation grips the battlefield. Russia has unleashed one of its biggest aerial attacks. "400 drones, 29 missiles rained down on Ukraine, and it came just hours before peace talks in Geneva." The constant bombardment shredding power grids and infrastructure across Kharkiv, Odessa, Zaporizhia and other regions. Each new attack tests Ukraine's depleted air defense grid, forcing it to expand interceptors, which are hardly being replenished. All this comes at a time when Russian and Ukrainian negotiators are meeting in Geneva for fresh US-brokered talks. Battered and bruised by the grinding war, Ukrainians have little hopes that the talks would end their ordeal.
There have been so many of these meetings, so much talk about a ceasefire. Belief as such is not very strong, but people are already exhausted. They should be at least given a little rest.
One shouldn't trust the Russians absolutely, not even a little. I really want to believe that something will change after the meeting, but I don't really hope on it.
But political pressure is mounting. Trump's message is blunt. Ukraine must negotiate quickly.
Ukraine better come to the table fast. That's all I'm telling you. We are in a position. We want them to come.
At the same time, Germany has signaled that its weapons stockpiles are largely exhausted. Berlin says there are few systems left to send without undermining its own readiness. Across Europe, fatigue is visible. Supplies are finite. Production lines are stretched. Geneva offers a solution. The battlefield offers leverage. For now, both tracks move in parallel. Talks begin under the shadow of a brutal war, and the question remains, can diplomacy outrun the drones and missiles? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
U.S. civil rights leader and a close associate of Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, died at the age of 84.
Well, Jackson, an eloquent Baptist minister and two-time presidential candidate, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2017. A towering civil rights voice since the turbulent 1960s, he championed racial as well as voting and economic rights of Black Americans and other marginalized communities for decades, while also weathering several controversies.
Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton reflected on the life and legacy of Jackson, calling him a transformational figure who reshaped American politics, who helped keep the movement alive long after many of its early leaders were killed young.
He literally changed American politics, New York politics, and kept the civil rights movement going, and then raised some of us that have been in the forefront in the first part of the 21st century to do what we do. And he's been there with us. When we did George Floyd, he was right there in the church with us when I did the eulogy. He was there with us with Trayvon Martin. He never stopped.
Hours after the announcement of his death, US President Donald Trump offered his condolences, calling Jackson a good man with lots of personality, grit and street smarts.
Former US Presidents Bill Clinton, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, as well as former Vice President Kamala Harris, mourned Jackson's death and poured their tributes on social media. Other prominent leaders like South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and British Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy also offered their heartfelt condolences.
Residents from Chicago, Atlanta too offered their tributes, honoring his legacy. Take a look.
I think that, the struggle that they had to go through made them who they are. And we, like you say, we don't have people that strong to, to continue as they would. We have people that's going to try to continue, but not as they, because we haven't had the struggles they had.
UN spokesperson said Secretary General Antonio Guterres was deeply saddened by Jackson's death. Guterres noted that Jackson participated in a number of events at UN headquarters over the years, whose legacy extended far beyond America, inspiring generations through his advocacy for justice and inclusion on the international stage.
Jackson, a giant of the civil rights.
And the United States military says it has carried out deadly strikes on 3 alleged drug smuggling boats in the Eastern Pacific and the Caribbean.
Well, the U.S. Southern Command confirmed that a total of 11 people were killed in this operation, which took place late on Monday. Now, according to the U.S. military, 4 people were killed on the first vessel in the Eastern Pacific, 4 more on a second boat in the same region, and 3 on a third vessel in the Caribbean Sea. The command said no American military personnel were injured during the strikes, while the military described the boats as involved in drug smuggling. No details have yet been released about the identities or the nationalities of those killed or whether any contraband was recovered.
The Trump administration has carried out more than 40 strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean Sea and Pacific Ocean since September. More than 130 people have been killed in those strikes.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said the overall operation is aimed at removing narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, quote unquote, and securing the US from the drugs that are killing our people. All right, this is World DNA. We are going to be taking a very short break, but coming up, there's more reports. US police say they have arrested the 18-year-old who ran towards Capitol with a loaded gun. We'll bring you the details on that and a lot more. Stay with us. Come right back.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for staying with us. More reports continue on World DNA. US police say that they have arrested the 18-year-old who ran towards Capitol with a loaded gun.
Well, US Capitol Police said that the man wearing a tactical vest and gloves arrived in a white Mercedes SUV just after noon and peaked near the Capitol before getting out and running towards the building that houses the US Congress. The police challenged the man and ordered him to drop the weapon.
I think it's also important to note that this individual had a tactical vest on. He also had tactical gloves, and when we looked in the vehicle, he had a Kevlar helmet and a gas mask in the vehicle. He was also, like I mentioned earlier, the shotgun was loaded. He had additional rounds on his person.
The incident took place less than 3 months after a National Guard member was killed. Another was wounded in an ambush shooting near the White House. President Trump is due to deliver the State of the Union address at Capitol next week.
Weeks of relentless rain have left parts of southern England underwater, with rivers swelling to record highs and communities struggling to cope up.
Well, aerial footage shows Salisbury's playgrounds and car parks submerged with floodwaters creeping into backyards and even surrounding farmlands. What was once solid ground now resembles a shallow lake, with daily life disrupted across the region.
Experts say the problem isn't just overflowing rivers. Soil across the south has become so saturated that water is now rising directly through the ground, adding to the flooding. And according to the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, river levels in the southwest have reached record highs over the past few weeks.
Meteorologists are calling this one of the wettest Januaries since 1890. With more rainfall expected, communities remain anxious, hoping waters will ease before causing further damage. Authorities have meanwhile urged residents to exercise caution and to keep clear of floodwaters. Anti-government anger refuses to die down in Serbia.
A train canopy collapse that killed 16 people in November 2024 triggered nationwide protests that still continue, even after 15 months. Demands for accountability, reforms and fresh elections are echoing through the streets of Serbia. Take a look.
Just elections, in a peaceful way. I honestly do, in a peaceful way. Admittedly, I don't really see that he will be able to do that, but I hope so. Maybe I'm naive.
And tensions in Ethiopia's Tigray region have escalated once again.
Reports suggest that both Ethiopia's federal soldiers and Tigrayan troops have massed along the border of the country's northern Tigray region. This has sparked fears of a renewed civil war.
The news agency AFP has quoted local sources in Tigray who are calling the troop mobilization massive. They added that unless the international community exerts pressure on the parties to resolve the conflict, the risk of another war increases.
The Tigray civil war lasted from 2020 to 2022. It pitted Ethiopian federal troops against rebels from the Tigray People's Liberation Front. According to the African Union, at least 600,000 people were killed in the conflict. Ethiopia and neighboring Eritrea had fought together against the Tigrayan rebels, but relations between the two nations have deteriorated since then. The Ethiopian government now accuses Eritrea of supplying the rebels with weapons, which the Eritrean government has denied.
Last week, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has called on all sides to take urgent de-escalation measures before it is too late.
Passengers remain stranded at Kenya's main airport as a strike by air traffic controllers entered a second day.
Leaving us many waiting for hours, and the strike has caused major disruption at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, which is one of Africa's busiest hubs. The strike by airport workers has caused significant flight delays for both departures and arrivals. Some passengers even say that they are unsure whether to remain at the airport or return home.
There's all these planes sitting there, but nothing is moving. Right now we're in limbo. We don't know, well, we've actually left Kenya, so we're actually not supposed to be out here because our visa says that we've left, but they gave us a special letter and we don't know when we're leaving again.
We were to take off at 5:30, but we didn't. Yeah, 5 hours later we were told to come out of the plane, and pick our bags and just wait until they communicate. So we've been here since yesterday.
Kenya Airways, the East African country's main airline, issued a travel advisory urging customers to check their flight status before heading to the airport in Nairobi.
The strike by Kenya Aviation Workers Union started on Monday. The union accuses the Aviation Authority of failing to conclude a collective bargaining agreement and keeping staff on temporary terms. The Kenya Airport Authority said it took contingency measures to minimize disruptions as it attempted to resolve the ongoing strike, stressing its openness to constructive dialogue. Above our heads, space looks calm, silent, empty. But NASA now admits that thousands of deadly asteroids are out there, unseen, untracked, unstoppable.
And if one is heading for Earth, we may never know until it is too late. This next story explains more on this. Take a look.
The night sky looks beautiful. It truly is a magnificent sight. Stars glittering. But behind the glitter there lurks a big danger. Space hides killers, rocks hurtle unseen, deep space churns with threats, ancient rocks tumble from the void. One collision could erase cities, thousands of city-killer asteroids lurk undetected. NASA says there are around 15,000 mid-sized space rocks are unaccounted for. These rocks, known as city killers, are at least 140 meters in diameter, and if one were to hit a populated area on Earth, could really cause massive damage. They are too dark for traditional telescopes to spot and too fast for our current early warning systems to track until they are too close from impact. What terrifies scientists is that the planet would have no way of defending itself should one of these rocks appear to be crashing towards Earth. The alarm bells rang globally last year when a space rock the size of a football stadium screamed past Earth, coming closer than the orbit of the Moon. Terrifyingly, astronomers only spotted the rogue object after it had already made its closest approach. This near miss exposed the brutal reality that our planetary shield is a myth. While experiments like DART showed we can nudge a rock with years of preparation, we have absolutely no capability to intercept a short-notice threat. If a city killer were detected on a collision course today, our only option would be evacuation, not deflection. Humanity is effectively standing in the middle of a cosmic highway with its eyes closed. For now, our best defense remains early detection, and that defense is incomplete. Above us, space is crowded, dark, and indifferent. The question is not whether Earth will be hit again, only when.
All right, and with that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break on World DNA.
Well, don't go anywhere. More reports coming up. The United States plans to deploy more high-tech missile systems to the Philippines to help deter growing Chinese footprint in the South China Sea. We'll bring you the details on that.
Also on the other side, the Supreme Court of India has sounded the alarm over a new trend emerging inside Indian courtrooms, which is lawyers relying on artificial intelligence tools. All this and more coming up on the other side of World DNA. Stay tuned. You're watching WION World this morning.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is one.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
And welcome to a brand new edition of South India, a daily dynamic show that will capture the pulse of southern states.
By blending the special stories, the breaking alerts, and the culture developments as well.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Deeksha. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Thanks so much for staying with us. Let's start with the headlines.
US plans to carry out new yield nuclear tests, ending decades-long moratorium in response to alleged secret nuclear tests by China and Russia. This comes after expiration of New START treaty with Russia.
Cambodian Prime Minister accuses Thai forces of occupying Cambodian territory despite last year's peace accord brokered by the US President. Urges Thailand to allow a joint boundary commission to resolve the dispute.
India and France upgrade their ties to a special strategic partnership, boosting cooperation in defense, technology, minerals and energy. As Prime Minister Modi meets Macron in Mumbai to discuss bilateral ties and global stability.
It's very clear that the president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it.
Iran says it has agreed with the US in talks in Geneva on guiding principles for a deal to avoid conflict. But Vice President J.D. Vance says Tehran has not yet acknowledged all of Washington's red lines.
Ukrainian and Russian negotiators conclude the first of 2 days of US-mediated peace talks in Geneva, with neither side hinting at any breakthrough. Talks are set to continue today.
An explosion rips through a church in upstate New York, injuring 5 people, including the pastor and firefighters who responded to a report of a gas odor in the building.
US civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, a close ally of Martin Luther King Jr. and two-time presidential candidate, dies at the age of 84. Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Joe Biden and Bill Clinton pay tribute.
US President Trump announces that Japan will invest $36 billion in US oil, gas and critical mineral projects. This will be the first tranche of its $550 billion trade deal commitment, including a large Ohio gas plant, Georgia mineral site and a Texas LNG project.
With the crescent moon marking the start of Ramzan sighted, Saudi Arabia announces the beginning of the holy month from today, while Iran's Supreme Leader's office says it will start on Thursday.
Japan's January exports surged nearly 17%, the fastest in over 3 years, driven by strong demand from Asia and Europe. Imports fall 2.5%, narrowing the trade deficit to about $7.5 billion, with mixed demand from key markets.
The United States plans to deploy more high-tech missile systems to the Philippines to help deter growing Chinese footprint in the South China Sea.
Well, Beijing says US weapons are aimed at containing China's rise. It describes the weapons as a threat to regional stability. US and Philippine officials held annual talks on Monday in Manila on broadening the security, political and economic engagements and boosting collaboration with regional security allies. This as ties between Beijing and Manila continue to grow tense.
After China repeatedly asking Philippines to withdraw the missile launchers from its territory, and officials led by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. have rejected the demand.
Philippine ambassador to Washington, Jose Manuel, who took part in Monday's talks, said US and Filipino defense officials discussed the possible deployment this year of upgraded variants of US missile launchers that the Philippines may eventually decide to purchase.
Well, Beijing has repeatedly expressed alarm over the installation of the northern Philippines of a US mid-range missile system called the Typhoon in 2024 and of anti-ship missile launcher last year.
Confrontations between Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard forces have spiked in the disputed waters in recent years. The Typhoon missile launchers, a land-based weapon, can fire the Standard Missile 6 and the Tomahawk land attack missile. Tomahawk missiles can travel over 1,600 kilometers, which places China within their target range from the northern Philippine region of Luzon. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan, they are also involved in the territorial standoffs.
Last year, the US Marines deployed an anti-ship missile launcher to Bataan Islands in the north of Philippines, which faces the Bashi Channel just south of Taiwan. The sea passage is a critical trade and military route that the US and Chinese militaries have tried to gain strategic control of.
India and France, they've elevated their bilateral ties to the level of special global strategic partnership.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has noted that the friendship between New Delhi and Paris has no boundaries. In a joint press statement with French President Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister Modi underscored the depth and significance of India-France bilateral ties. He described the partnership as a crucial one. The India-France partnership has expanded from defense to trade to technology and energy, with Paris positioning itself as one of New Delhi's most reliable European partners.
भारत और फ्रांस मिलकर माउंट एवरेस्ट की ऊंचाइयों तक उड़ान भरने वाला विश्व का एकमात्र हेलीकॉप्टर भारत में बनाएंगे और ये पूरे विश्व को एक्सपोर्ट भी करेंगे। यानी इंडिया फ्रांस पार्टनरशिप नोज नो बाउंड्रीज।
The two leaders also virtually inaugurated the final assembly line for the production of H-125 helicopters. It's a joint venture involving India's Tata Advanced Systems and Airbus. The assembly line in the southern state of Karnataka is India's first private sector facility to make helicopters.
Meanwhile, Macron said that relationship between India and France is in the face of acceleration in response to the changing international order. He also called on India to join efforts with France towards ending Russia's war in Ukraine. Macron also invited Prime Minister Modi to join the next Group of 7 summit, which will take place in June in France's Evian.
Civil infrastructure.
As the ceasefire remains difficult to achieve, and I regret that, we could join our efforts to secure the establishment of an immediate and lasting moratorium on strikes against civilians and civilian infrastructure.
After holding delegation-level talks, Prime Minister Modi and the visiting French president also inaugurated the India-France Innovation Forum. The leaders officially launched the India-France Year of Innovation at the iconic Gateway of India in Mumbai. The Indian Prime Minister highlighted that the goal of the initiative is to strengthen people-to-people connections.
Macron, along with French First Lady Brigitte Macron, also paid a solemn tribute to the victims of the 2008 terror attacks at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in Mumbai.
As part of his Mumbai visit, Macron also met personalities from the arts and culture world, including multiple Bollywood actors.
Macron's first visit to India was in 2018, followed by his attendance at the 2023 G20 summit. He also came for a state visit in 2024 as the chief guest of India's 75th Republic Day.
Well, India is hosting this year's AI Impact Summit in the capital, New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the event on Monday.
And he has spelled out India's goals for the future of AI. In an interview with the news agency Asian News International, the Prime Minister expressed India's ambition, saying that the goal should be among the top 3 AI superpowers globally. He also stressed that India should not just become a superpower in the consumption of AI, but also in the creation of AI.
Now, to do this, India has to be AI ready. And PM Modi says that the government has a strategy which aims to equip the Indian workforce with industry-relevant AI expertise. He says the government's focus areas so far have been healthcare, agriculture, education, and sustainable cities.
The Prime Minister says that artificial intelligence is a tool that must be used for the good of humankind. There are two major concerns when it comes to AI, its misuse and its fear that it will take away jobs. Prime Minister Modi addressed both of these concerns during the interview.
Now, regarding AI being used to make deepfake videos, he mentioned that India's new rules requiring that all AI-generated content be marked as such. He also advocated for global standards on AI safety.
And as far as AI's potential to take jobs is concerned, he said that there was no reason to be afraid, because India was already preparing for an AI-driven future. He highlighted the steps that the government had taken to reskill the workforce. And he reminded people that every major innovation has always been met with suspicion, but the fears have always been unfounded. The Supreme Court of India has sounded the alarm over a new trend emerging inside Indian courtrooms.
Lawyers relying on artificial intelligence tools. That's the new trend, and that is inventing case laws, fabricating judgments, and manufacturing courts that simply do not exist. A three-judge bench led by Chief Justice Surya Kant, along with Justices B.V. Nagaratna and Jyomala Bagchi, has issued a stern caution to this bar.
Well, the bench made it clear that unchecked dependence on AI-generated drafts risk contaminating the judicial process itself. The judges highlighted that there were several petitions filed which contained AI hallucinations.
Now, to put it simply, AI hallucinations is when AI produces false information as factual, even though it is incorrect.
Well, Justice Nagaratna cited one example of a case titled Mercy versus Mankind. Now, the problem here is that no such judgment exists. In other instances, lawyers cited real Supreme Court cases, but the quoted passages had never been written by the court. The bench also pointed to a matter heard by Justice Dipankar Datta, where every legal precedent cited by counsel turned out to be fabricated.
This is not an India-only problem. Courts in the United States have penalized lawyers for submitting AI-generated fake citations. Similar such concerns have also surfaced inside courts in the United Kingdom and Australia. Cambodian Prime Minister has accused the Thai forces of occupying Cambodian territory despite a peace accord brokered by the US after fighting last year. Listen to this.
This is further beyond even Thailand's own unilateral claim line, borderline. Also, certain activities that have been conducted by Thai troops, such as the laying of containers, barbed wire to block the road, has caused hardship to our people.
Thailand has said it is maintaining true positions as part of de-escalation measures and has denied it is occupying territory. The worst fighting in more than a decade, which broke out in July, has displaced hundreds of thousands of people and disrupted trade across the 817-kilometer border. An October peace accord signed with Trump and Malaysia's Prime Minister broke down within a matter of weeks before a new ceasefire was reached on December 27. Hun Manet called on Thailand to allow a joint boundary commission to begin working on their disputed border.
So now the election is done. We hope that Thailand can start, at least on a technical level, that to start measuring or start demarcated in the hot zone so that we can go back to life, you know.
US President Donald Trump has announced the first set of Japanese investments under the US-Japan Trade and Investment Deal.
Well, the initial projects, worth about $36 billion, focus on energy, liquefied natural gas, LNG, and critical minerals. This marks the first tranche of a much larger $550 billion commitment from Japan. The announcement comes weeks before Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi meets Trump in Washington in March.
The projects include a major natural gas-fired power plant in Portsmouth, Ohio, a liquefied natural gas export terminal in Texas, and a critical minerals processing facility in Georgia. Well, Trump cast the investment as part of a strategy to revitalize America's industrial base and reduce dependence on foreign suppliers, particularly in energy and strategic minerals, while creating jobs and supporting U.S. energy exports.
The investments stem from the US-Japan trade agreement inked in mid-2025. Under the arrangement, the United States agreed to reduce reciprocal tariffs, including levies affecting Japanese auto exports, to around 15%, down from the earlier threatened 25%.
In return, Japan pledged up to $550 billion in strategic investments across sectors such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharma and advanced manufacturing. While details on financing structures and timelines are still emerging, reports suggest that more project announcements are expected in the coming months.
Last week, Trump advisor Howard Lutnick met with Japanese Trade Minister in Washington to finalize the first tranche of investment projects. Projects were selected by Trump with inputs from his investment committee and Japanese officials.
Akazawa said that projects will focus on safe, steady returns rather than high-risk ventures. He said last year that only a small portion of up to 2% of the $550 billion fund will be direct cash investments, with most coming through loans and guarantees.
The Japan Bank for International Cooperation and Nippon Export and Investment Insurance will play key roles in financing. Spain has ordered prosecutors to investigate major social media platforms.
And this is over the alleged spread of AI-generated child sexual abuse material. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said that the move targets social media platform X, Meta and TikTok.
Sanchez also said that prosecutors had been asked to examine whether the platforms may have played a role in the creation and dissemination of AI-generated child sexual abuse content. He added that the investigation would focus on possible criminal offences linked to the use of artificial intelligence to produce and circulate illegal content.
In a message posted on X, Sanchez said, and I'm quoting here, "These platforms are undermining the mental health, dignity and rights of our children. The state cannot allow this. The impunity of these giants must end." Listen to this.
The announcement comes as regulators across Europe step up scrutiny of big tech companies over a range of alleged abusive practices, from anti-competitive behavior in digital advertising to the deliberate design of addictive features on social media platforms. Spain's move also forms part of a wider international push to curb the spread of illegal and sexually exploitative content online.
Sanchez said that Spain is not acting alone and that governments are increasingly moving to close legal gaps around the use of generative AI on social media platforms. Earlier this month, the Spanish government also announced a package of measures which were aimed at curbing online abuse and better protecting children. The proposals include a possible ban on access to social media for children under the age of 16. All right, now let's shift our focus to the world of sports, where slowly but surely the blanket ban on Russian and Belarusian athletes is being lifted.
Well, the International Paralympic Committee has confirmed this. Athletes from both countries will be allowed to compete under their own flags at the Milano Cortina Paralympic Games.
Now, at its General Assembly in September last year, the International Paralympic Committee unexpectedly lifted its suspension on Russian and Belarusian athletes. On Tuesday, it confirmed to news agency AFP that at the Paralympics Games, which runs from March 6th to 15th, athletes from both nations will be treated like those from any other country. The Russian Paralympic Committee has been awarded 6 wildcards for the upcoming Games, while Belarus has been given 4 slots.
The International Olympic Committee has also recently hinted at easing restrictions on Russia and Belarus. Its president, Kirsty Coventry, at the latest IOC session insisted that sports must remain neutral in a divided world. Several other international bodies have also been considering Russia's return, including FIFA, whose president, Gianni Infantino, has said that he would support lifting the ban, at least at the youth level.
Athletes from Russia and Belarus had been barred from competing under their own flags since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. However, in 2023, the ban was partially lifted to allow them to compete as neutrals.
International stars took center stage at China's Spring Festival Gala as John Legend and Helene Rolls joined one of the world's most watched Lunar New Year celebrations.
The annual broadcast once again drew hundreds of millions of viewers. More details in our next story. Take a look.
Quanto tempo perduto, stavo sempre da sola a pensare se un giorno sarò con te. Non c'è niente al mondo, mi importa solo stare.
All right, viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA, and we are going to be taking a very short break. Before that, here's a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. Stay with us. This is WION The World.